Jude and the Zombies, Part 4. Found behind a wall of boxes. Most of the new books I picked up were about zombies and the Walking Dead. They were all fiction, and some were even funny. Some were helpful, others just scared me, but none could explain what was really happening, or why I was being left alone. I was in a new bookstore one day looking for more zombie books when I actually met someone not dead. I went to the back room to make sure I hadn't missed anything. She was behind a wall of boxes that said "Donated, please sort" on them. She had a little living area back there and didn't scream when I moved the boxes, just cowered in the shadows. I cleared my throat. "Are you alive?" I asked. "Are you?" she shot back. She leaned forward a bit. Her face came into the light. She was a short, thin Filipino girl. So thin she could have been mistaken for a zombie. "I am alive. Are you all right?" I asked. I felt stupid then because of course she was not all right. She was rail thin, hiding behind a wall of boxes in a bookstore that was in no way secure. "Come with me to my house," I said. "You're not one of those radical people, are you?" she asked. "What are you talking about?" She shrugged. "I guess you're not." She started to get up and came with me to my car. Her right arm had a bright white bandage on it, and she had a bat tucked under it. Her head darted right and left as we walked to my car, parked on the sidewalk. She jumped into the car and crouched down low. I got in calmly and started the engine. The sound of the engine always brought one or two of them. The girl's eyes widened and she crouched lower. "Get down, I see a few," she said. "It's all right, I'll just go." I started to drive calmly away. Two started to follow, but we left them behind easily as I followed my path home. "So what's your name?" I asked. "Irene," she said, still looking out the window. "What happened to you?" "I used to work at one of the restaurants in the area. I was working when it started. We weren't open yet, so the doors were locked, but there were a few big windows, so we went to the office in the back. It has no windows and a lock on the door." She paused and coughed. I nodded and glanced over at her. "There were 3 of us. We hid for a few days, but eventually they sniff you out. I had to hide in an air vent." She looked down at the bandage on her arm. "Were any of you hurt?" I asked. "Everyone but me. I don't know where the others went. I was the only one small enough to fit in the vent." She paused. "I did get attacked yesterday, but I think it's just a scratch." We reached my house. Irene paused in the car for a second. "What's the plan?" she asked. "Let's just walk to the door," I said. There were only 1 or 2 of them milling around, and they didn't seem interested until Irene opened her door. They started to amble over, but couldn't make up their minds. They rocked back and forth on their feet and didn't move forward very quickly. We got into the house without incident. "I've got some first aid supplies in the bathroom if you need anything," I offered. Irene touched the bandage on her arm. The bright white was marred by a brownish red spot that was growing. "I should probably change this bandage. Do you have anything like that?" she asked. I nodded and led her to the bathroom. Irene wouldn't let me stay in the room while she changed her bandage. When she came out, we talked a bit more. I made some dinner, although Irene mostly picked at it. "I've got a sofa bed in the other room, or you can sleep on the couch," I offered. She took the couch. That night, I heard Irene hacking in the bathroom. I got up and went to the door. "Irene, are you all right?" I asked. At first, she didn't say anything. "Yes, just something in my throat. I think I'm allergic to cats," she said. She hacked a few more times. "All right, well, there's allergy medicine in the 3rd drawer if you want some," I said. "Thanks," she said. I went back to bed. The next morning, Irene was already up and sitting at the kitchen table. I walked up to her from behind. "Hey, good morning." I was so excited to have some company. That's when I noticed the bandage on her arm was soaked through. On the floor were 2 clots of blood. I stopped walking. She turned her head, and her eyes had that dead look in them that all zombies had. Her skin had turned ghastly gray, and she was sniffing. She looked confused, her nose wrinkled, and her dead eyes scrunched. I went to the back door near her seat. Her eyes followed me, but she made no move. I opened the door and stood to the side. She leaned into the fresh air that poured through, sniffing madly. Then she shot out of her chair and out the door. I closed the door quickly but quietly and locked it. I moved to the recliner and sat crying for about an hour. I was totally alone again. There was a large spot on the couch where her wound had bled, and there were splatters of blood on the blanket and pillow I'd given her. The bathroom was a mess, with clots of blood all over the floor, in the tub and sink. There were even splatters on the mirror. I stripped the slipcover off the sofa, took the blanket and pillow and stuffed them in a plastic trash bag. Then, after that was tied tight, I went to the bathroom and scrubbed it from floor to ceiling. When I was done, I put all the rags and soiled towels in another bag and tied it tightly. I stood in the backyard as the bags burned. I tried not to think about the fact that Irene had not attacked me. I tried not to think about the fact that even though my house was old and easy to break into, none of them ever did. I tried not to think about how I thought I might have had a friend. Your friendly neighborhood radicals. As summer progressed, the days got nicer, so I would go to the lake and walk. It was difficult to ignore the dead that milled around, but being outside on a nice day was better than staying home. The cat liked to follow me. She would wander around the different neighborhoods and run from the stray dogs. I tried to take a few in, but they were all terrified and would run off before I could get close. It was as if they didn't remember what a live person smelled like. Once, as I walked around the lake, I thought I saw someone moving between 2 big trees. Not the way the dead did, not ambling stiffly along, but with a quickness only the living possessed. I saw the movement from several feet away, so I couldn't be sure. I watched the dark, shady spot between the 2 huge trees for what felt like 10 minutes, but didn't see it again, so I kept walking. But then I saw movement again. I made my way to a small grouping of trees and hid. My cat followed me. "Getting paranoid all by myself," I said to her as she watched me curiously. I'd walked from my house to the lake that day, so I couldn't just hop in my car and drive away if there was any danger from whatever I was seeing. I kept thinking, this is it. This is the moment they realize I'm alive and attack me. I was feeling quite peaceful about the whole thing. I heard a noise behind me. With a deep breath, I turned slowly to look. There was one of them, standing behind me, ambling my way. I nodded down at the cat. She wasn't looking at me, though. She was doing that creepy cat thing where in the midst of normal cat business, they suddenly stop and stare intently at something. It could be the wall, the air, who knows what they're staring at, but they are certain that whatever it is, it's there. I turned and looked in the direction she was. I heard the zombie amble by, giving my bunch of shadows a wide berth. He blew air out his nose as he walked by me. Suddenly, a man burst out of the shadows I'd been watching. He was dressed all in black, which included a black mask that completely covered his head. He had a black leather strap across his chest. There was violent red writing on his shirt. I think it said radicals. There was a moment of confusion on the zombie's part, but then the wind picked up. He caught a whiff of the living flesh and started to make his way rather quickly towards the man. The man didn't move, despite the zombie's growls. He braced himself and pulled a large gun from behind his back. That's what had been attached to the leather strap. He shot the ambling thing in the head, dead between the eyes, and it fell back. The man waited for a moment, looking for any sign of movement. He stood there watching it through his mask for 5 minutes. I was motionless as I watched him approach the body of the dead zombie. Carefully, he removed his mask. He had a ragged beard and long hair. He leaned down close, so close I thought he was going to kiss it. "Finally found you, brother," he said. Then he proceeded to beat the crap out of it. His eyes were wild, his face distorted with rage as he beat this thing that was once a person, his brother. I felt ill as he bashed the head to a pulp. I closed my eyes until the man was finished. When it was quiet again, I opened my eyes, afraid he'd be staring right at me, but he wasn't. He was still staring down at his brother. He spat on it, turned, and walked along the path, striding right past me. I stood in the shadows, staring at the mess in front of me that was once a person, someone's brother apparently. I started to cry softly and lowered myself to the ground. I pulled my knees up to my chest and rested my forehead on them. My cat rubbed against my legs, and that brought me back to the present. I needed to leave before these savages came back and found me. I crept along in the shadows of the lake, and when there were no shadows left, I ran home, the cat keeping pace with me. I know the man killed a monster, and it wasn't really a person anymore, but I didn't understand his savagery. That night, I turned on my radio. I hadn't listened to the radio since the power went out. It seemed foolish to waste battery life on the repeating notices and static. The notices had stopped and had been replaced by solid static. I slowly turned the dial, listening hard for anything. I picked up a faint message. "Come join us! We're the radicals, making those fucking dead pay for what they've done." It was horrifying to me. Their tone was so ruthless. They didn't want to understand or help. They just wanted to kill. I didn't go back to the lake to walk for the rest of the summer.